Other Side of the Sun was written by Evelyn Sharp. Somebody Else's Prince, Part 2. The gremlin looked at her and winked his eyes, but when he saw that her eyes were shining, just as her own flowers might have done at the time of the dew fall, he stopped teasing her at once. No one knows better than a gremlin when it is time to stop teasing. "Hello," he said. "What's the matter now?" "I thought I should see something quite different," said the princess. "So you would, my little dear," cried the gremlin. "I was only telling you what I saw. Give me those two ridiculous little hands of yours, and you shall see everything that I didn't." This time the Princess Gentianella did say, "Oh!" And she said it because she found herself sitting on the top of her wall, with all the world on the other side of it lying stretched out before her for miles and miles and miles. She did not see very much at first, though, for she looked no further than the little corner of it that lay just under her eyes. "Why," said the princess softly, "there is a garden on the other side of my wall, and only look, there's a real prince in the middle of it." She turned round to tell her gremlin all about it, but the gremlin had other work to do, and was already on his way to the back of the sun. So there was nothing for it but to look over the wall again, and this time the prince glanced up and saw her. Now Prince Amaryllis had been waiting a great many days for someone to appear at the top of the wall, but now that someone had appeared there and was looking so extremely glad to see him, he suddenly found he had nothing whatsoever to say to her. That is what occasionally happens to the most charming of princes. Fortunately, however, the princess knew perfectly well what to say to him. "I knew there would be something nice on the other side of my wall," she cried. "The gremlin was quite wrong, wasn't he?" "No doubt he was, if you say so," answered the prince, who had never noticed the gremlin at all. "But how is it, little lady, that you can see me?" The princess opened her eyes and stared at him. "How can I help seeing you, if you were there?" she asked. "But I'm not here, that's just it," exclaimed Prince Amaryllis. "At least I'm not supposed to be. You see, I have been invisible all my life. You are the first person outside of my own country who has ever been able to see me. I'm very glad you can see me," he added politely. "One gets a little tired sometimes of being heard and not seen." "When I was a little girl," said Princess Gentianella, drawing herself up to her full height, "I was always taught to be seen and not heard. That was very dull, too. But tell me, why is it that you are invisible?" "Alas," said the prince, "the whole of my country is invisible, too. Tell me what you can see, princess, from the top of your wall." "I can see you," answered the little princess. "But do you see nothing else?" asked Prince Amaryllis. The princess shaded her eyes with her hand and looked way into the distance. "I can see a large flat plain with no trees and no rivers and no people and no houses," she answered. Prince Amaryllis sighed. "You are looking right into my country," he said, "and it's every bit as full of trees and rivers and people and houses as anybody else's country. Do you not hear anything either?" "Oh yes," said Princess Gentianella. "I can hear the murmur of voices, and the ripple of rivers, and the rustle of trees. I've heard those sounds all my life, but I thought they were just in the wind." "Nothing of the sort," replied the prince. "They are the sounds that belong to my country, where everybody is heard and not seen. It all began with a christening party 100 years ago. My great-grandfather was king then. He was the most absent-minded king that has ever ruled over us, and he forgot to ask the witch to dance with him, which of course offended her deeply. And it happened that she was a witch who was always making experiments. So she experimented on my country at once by making it invisible, and it has been invisible ever since. How strange, said Princess Gentianella. I never remember hearing anyone talk about your country. Of course not, sighed the prince. You can't expect people to talk about a thing that isn't there, can you? You have no idea how stupid it is to live in a place that no one can see. But why does not someone disenchant your kingdom? Asked the princess, who had read quite enough history to know that kingdoms are always disenchanted sooner or later. That is what I'm trying to do, answered Prince Amaryllis. The spell can only be removed if a king's son will spend a whole year in this waste piece of ground and make it into a beautiful garden. But although I've been here for nearly a year, I have not been able to make a single flower grow. It's a little tiresome, he added, with another sigh, for it's part of the spell that I shall have to be executed if I fail. Dear me, exclaimed the little princess, you are much too nice to be executed. Won't you let me come and play in your garden? Perhaps I might help you make the flowers grow. Prince Amaryllis shook his head and smiled. It's not a nice garden to play in, he said. I think I will come and play in yours instead, and you shall teach me the way to make the gardens grow.
And now it is time for all little children to go to sleep. Good night.